While the world looked elsewhere, a war began under the ice. It was a transformation the world was never supposed to see. The start of a silent mobilization that redrew the map. For those watching, the signal was unmistakable. The power shift had begun. Trillions in resources hidden beneath melting ice. A race for dominance that the public was never supposed to see. Every nation knew the price, and everyone was willing to pay it. The prize was more than just energy. It was absolute dominance. The real war was never on the surface. A network of listening grids claiming the deep for the highest bidder. A silent grid claiming the deep for those with the power to reach it. The digital spine of the new world was being laid in the dark. Every movement tracked, every signal watched. In this landscape, there are no shadows left to hide in. Absolute oversight, total awareness. The Arctic had become the world's most sophisticated surveillance state. No headlines, no warnings, just a silent takeover of the world's most vital assets. The transition of power was happening in the silence. The world was oblivious to the shift until it was too late. No shots fired, but the message was deafening. A stalemate that could rewrite history with a single mistake. The Arctic had become a pressure cooker, waiting for a spark, waiting for the silence to finally break. The Arctic became a battlefield. Sovereignty was now measured in military reach and tech. The lines on the map were no longer theoretical. They were enforced by the raw technology of war. Then, everything went dark. The digital spine of the world had been severed. Panic spread through the silence, crossing every border. The blackout was absolute. The world was left blind. No signal, no control, no visibility. A global power failure triggered from the coldest point on Earth. In the void, the rules of engagement had changed forever, and the architect of the silence was nowhere to be found. Chaos was no longer hidden. The first strike had finally landed and the ice was burning. The war had broken the surface and there was no turning back. The cost of the secret was finally visible to everyone. The impact spread to the entire world. Civilization began to grind to a halt in the dark. A global crisis born from the ice and the hidden war. The old order was failing. The new order was ready. Control was taken by force. The assets were secured and the previous owners were erased. The transition of power was seamless and absolute. The map was being redrawn for the New World Order, but control was never truly lost. It was transferred to those prepared for the fallout. The new masters of the grid were finally revealed, untouched and ready for the next phase. A new flow of power managed from the shadows, effortless and unstoppable. The machinery of the new world was already in motion. Everything in its place, everyone under watch. A new era of oversight managed from the shadows. A new world emerged, structured, controlled, silent. The Arctic was never just ice. It was the final resource, and now, whoever controls it, controls the future. While the world remains focused on borders drawn in heat, a new frontier is quietly forming in the cold. The Arctic, once untouched, now stands at the center of global attention. Not because of what it is, but because of what it hides. Beneath layers of ice, resources worth trillions wait silently. And as the ice begins to melt, so does the illusion of peace. Because this is not just climate change. This is the beginning of a silent war. For centuries, the Arctic remained locked, protected by ice, a natural barrier that kept nations away. But now, that barrier is disappearing, faster than predicted, faster than controlled. What was once unreachable is now exposed. Shipping lanes are opening, and with them, a race has begun. Beneath the surface lies something far more valuable than ice: lithium, rare earth minerals, oil reserves untouched by time, the materials that power modern civilization, electric batteries, advanced weapons, global infrastructure. This is not just wealth. This is control over the future. And for the first time, the Arctic is open for extraction. The first moves weren't announced. They were deployed. Massive icebreakers designed not for exploration, but for dominance. Each one marking presence. Each one claiming invisible territory. No headlines, no warnings, just quiet expansion. Because in this war, visibility is weakness. But the real war isn't happening on the surface. It's happening below. Underwater sensors, tracking movement, mapping control zones, submarines moving in silence, unseen, undetected. This is not exploration. This is surveillance. Every signal, every movement, carefully monitored. Because whoever controls the depths controls the Arctic. As the ice retreats, new paths emerge, shorter, faster, more strategic. Shipping lanes that could redefine global trade, routes that bypass traditional choke points, saving time, saving cost, and shifting power. Because control over these routes means control over the global economy, and every nation knows it. Then came the realization the Arctic wasn't just valuable, it was essential. Trillions of dollars in untapped resources, enough to shift global power structures entirely, enough to decide which nations rise and which fall. This wasn't a discovery, it was a turning point, and now there was no turning back. What began as exploration quickly transformed into militarization. Bases appeared in places once considered unreachable. Air patrols increased, surveillance intensified. This wasn't preparation, this was positioning. Because the Arctic was no longer neutral ground, it was becoming a battlefield. And yet, the world remains unaware, focused on visible conflicts, distracted by immediate crises. The Arctic War remains hidden, unspoken, unseen, but rapidly advancing. Because the most dangerous battles are the ones no one is watching. And this one is already underway. Then came the first real signal. Two forces crossing paths in the frozen silence. No shots fired, no words exchanged. But the message was clear: this territory is no longer empty. And the next encounter may not remain silent, because the Arctic is no longer just melting, it's heating up. Far from public view, movements have intensified. Convoys no longer travel alone, they move in formation, protected, calculated. Every route is mapped, every position secured. This is not exploration anymore, this is coordinated expansion. A silent march into contested territory, because in the Arctic, presence itself is a declaration of power. Beneath the frozen surface, a network is forming, invisible, silent, and always listening. Sensors spread across the ocean floor, tracking movement in real time. Every ship, every submarine, every vibration. This is the Arctic's nervous system, and whoever controls it, controls everything that moves within it. Control is not just below, it is above as well. Airspace over the Arctic has become heavily monitored. Jets patrol routes once considered empty. Every flight is tracked, every signal analyzed, because dominance here requires total awareness. Land, sea, and sky, all integrated into one system of control. Among all resources, one stands above the rest: lithium, the backbone of modern technology, from electric vehicle to advanced weapon systems. Demand has surged beyond limits, and the Arctic holds vast untapped reserves. This is no longer about energy. This is about controlling the future of technology itself. Governments are not alone in this race. Private contractors have entered the field, highly trained, heavily equipped, and unaccountable. They operate where official forces cannot, securing assets, enforcing control, and eliminating threats quietly. Because in a war without headlines, deniability becomes the most powerful weapon. Deep beneath the Arctic crust, another discovery changes everything. Rare earth minerals in quantities never seen before, essential for satellites, missiles, and digital infrastructure. These are not optional resources. They are critical to global dominance, and now they are within reach. Encounters are becoming more frequent. Rival forces crossing paths in confined routes. No communication, no retreat, just silent acknowledgement. Each side testing the other's limits. Because this is how conflicts begin here. Not with noise, but with presence. Far from the ice, control is centralized. Command centers monitor every movement in real time. Digital maps replace physical boundaries. Decisions are made in seconds, based on data flowing continuously. This is modern warfare, where information is more powerful than weapons, and the Arctic is now fully mapped. As power struggles intensify, civilian routes begin to suffer. Shipping becomes unpredictable. Delays increase. Risks grow. What was once opportunity is now uncertainty, because behind every disruption, there is a hidden conflict shaping the outcome. Then it happens. The first covert strike. No explosions, no headlines, but systems go dark, networks collapse, signals vanish. Someone has made the first move, and in the Arctic, Even silence can be an attack. Nature itself becomes a weapon. Storms, unpredictable and unforgiving. Visibility disappears within seconds. Navigation becomes guesswork. And within this chaos, movements can be hidden. Operations executed without detection. Because in the Arctic, the environment is part of the war. Above it all, a network of satellites watches constantly, every movement tracked from space, every shift recorded in real time. This is the eye in the sky, and nothing escapes it, because control in the Arctic requires vision beyond the horizon. The war extends beyond the ice. It reaches into global markets. Prices surge, uncertainty spreads. Investors react before the truth is known, because behind these fluctuations lies a hidden cause. The Arctic conflict is already shaping the global economy. By now, the realization is unavoidable. This is no longer a race. It is a conflict, a battle for control over the last great resource frontier, and every decision made from here will shape the future of global power. Because once this line is crossed, there is no return. The transformation is complete. What was once untouched wilderness is now a fully active battlefield. Forces operate in silence, but with intent. Every movement calculated, every position contested. Because the Arctic is no longer just melting ice. It has become the center of a global power struggle, and this is only the beginning. As darkness takes over the Arctic, the real operations begin. Movements that cannot be seen in daylight unfold under cover of night. Special units deploy silently, tracking targets invisible to the naked eye. Every step measured, every signal controlled. Because in this war, the night belongs to those who move unseen. Extraction has begun. Quietly and without record, remote sites operate for minutes, then vanish. Resources are lifted, secured, and transported. No official logs, no public confirmation, just silent removal of critical materials. Because in the Arctic, ownership is not declared, it is taken. Beneath the surface, a silent chase unfolds, submarines tracking each other without detection. Distances measured in meters, decisions made in seconds, no contact, no communication, just calculated positioning. Because one wrong move could ignite everything. Even the skies are now fully integrated into the operation. Temporary runways appear on frozen ground. Aircraft land where nothing existed before. Equipment is deployed in record time, then everything disappears again, leaving no trace except increased presence. Because the Arctic is being built into a battlefield in real time. The conflict has now entered the digital domain. Signals intercepted, communications disrupted. Information becomes both weapon and target. Every transmission carries risk. Every signal can be tracked, manipulated, or destroyed. Because in modern conflict, control of information is as critical as control of territory. And here, both are under attack. Temporary presence is no longer enough. Permanent bases are rising from the ice, fortified, equipped, and fully operational. This is not preparation anymore. This is occupation. Structures built to last, designed to dominate. Because control of the Arctic requires staying power. Now, they are all here. Multiple powers operating within the same frozen boundaries, each with its own objective, each with its own strategy. The Arctic has become a shared space of tension. No alliances, no trust, only calculated coexistence. Because one move could change everything. Only now, the world begins to notice. Reports surface, questions are asked. But by the time awareness spreads, the reality is already in motion. The Arctic is no longer a future concern. It is a present conflict, and those who acted early are already ahead. Then comes the moment when silence almost breaks. A near collision, a split second away from disaster. No weapons fired, but tension reaches its peak. Because accidents here are never just accidents. They are warnings. The Arctic has changed forever. What once belonged to nature now belongs to power. Every nation is present, every move is watched, and every decision carries weight. Because this is no longer a race, it is a conflict, a silent war. that is no longer avoidable. In the Arctic, borders are not drawn on land. They exist in data, in signals, in silent agreements. Invisible lines stretch across ice and water, each one claimed but never announced. Control is established silently. Not all wars begin with weapons. Some begin with documents. Legal claims are rising fast. But in the Arctic, law follows power, and the strongest claim is often backed by presence, not paperwork. Icebreakers are no longer just tools. They are instruments of control. Where they move, presence is established. Where they stop, territory is implied. Entire fleets now operate together, securing, defining ownership. Not all operations are official. Hidden routes have begun to emerge. Rare minerals are transported quietly. Black market networks grow in silence. When resources become critical, rules begin to disappear. Another discovery changes everything. Beneath the ice, vast energy reserves wait. Oil, gas, untouched. Enough to shift global energy balance. It is confirmed reality. And now, every major power is moving in. The war is informational, data is stolen, exchanged, manipulated. Spies operate without identity. Alliances are temporary. Every piece of information has value. Knowing your opponent is more powerful. The sky is no longer empty. Drone networks now cover the Arctic, scanning every movement, every signal. Nothing goes unnoticed. Every step is tracked. Visibility here means survival. Invisibility means advantage. Corporations have entered the game, massive investments, private control, hidden influence. Deals are made behind closed doors. Economic power is just as important as military force. Behind every operation, there is a human cost. Workers pushed beyond limits in extreme conditions. But the work never stops. The value of what lies beneath outweighs the cost above. People are expendable. Then, without warning, communication fails. Signals vanish across multiple zones. Systems go dark. This is not a malfunction. It is interference, a deliberate act, marking a deeper level of conflict. In the Arctic, alliances are formed quietly and broken even faster. Temporary partnerships emerge. Nations once competed, now coordinate in silence. But this is built on necessity, not trust. It doesn't take long for the first betrayal, a shared operation suddenly compromised. Systems collapse. Someone within has turned. In this war, loyalty is conditional. Every partner is a threat. Cyber warfare begins to reshape control. Systems are infiltrated. Data is manipulated. Routes shift. The most powerful attack is the one that changes reality unseen. Control over data is everything. Claims are being physically placed beneath the ocean, markers planted silently, declaring ownership. This is not just territory, it is a message, a signal to others that this zone is no longer free. Confusion becomes a weapon, false signals, misleading data, forces react to things that aren't real. Psychological pressure is more destructive than force. In this environment, clarity is everything. A critical realization, not all routes are equal. Certain narrow passages control the entire flow. Whoever controls these choke points controls global shipping. Every power is racing to secure them. Operations become more direct, but unacknowledged. Ships are intercepted and boarded without warning. Cargo seized with no official record. The space between peace and war is rapidly shrinking. Then, a zone goes completely dark, no signals, no tracking, an entire region disappears. For hours, no one knows what is happening. Control over visibility is control over reality. Defensive systems begin to appear, but their capabilities suggest otherwise. Ready, but not yet used. This is preparation for something much larger. Once weapons arrive, conflict becomes inevitable. Global supply feels the pressure. Routes are interrupted without explanation. Cargo delayed or lost. The Arctic is now unpredictable. Unpredictability is a tool. It creates dependency and forces control. Not all conflict is external. Internal divisions begin to surface. Different strategies, different priorities. Every decision carries risk. Uncertainty creates fractures even within power. The stakes are too high. Too much information becomes its own problem. Every movement tracked, but not all understood. Analysis becomes slower. Clarity is lost in overload. In that moment, mistakes become more likely. The effects are no longer contained. Global markets react aggressively. Energy prices surge. Supply uncertainty drives panic. The Arctic is now directly influencing global stability. Everything is tied to the ice. The truth becomes clear. This is not a direct war. It is a proxy conflict fought through contractors. No nation wants blame, but every nation is involved. Direct confrontation would trigger something far greater. Everything is now in motion. Forces positioned, systems active. The Arctic stands at the edge. One move away from open conflict. Every player is ready, waiting. The next step cannot be undone. The uncertainty ends here. This was not interference. It was an attack. Critical systems fail. Operations collapse within seconds. The line between covert action and open conflict begins to blur. The response is immediate. Forces once defensive now begin active movement. Mobilization accelerates. Hesitation is no longer an option. This is no longer preparation. This is activation. Every second matters. Beneath the ice, the first direct confrontation begins. Two unseen forces tracking each other in silence. No communication, no retreat, only calculated positioning. One wrong move could trigger everything. The skies are no longer open, airspace begins to close, restricted by force. Every aircraft is tracked. Interceptions become frequent. Warnings issued without hesitation. Control of the air defines survival. Then comes the moment that changes everything. A resource site is seized directly. No negotiation. Control is taken by force. Territory is no longer shared, it is claimed and defended. This is visible. The conflict spreads rapidly, no longer contained, sea, air, and land, all active at once. Every movement connected to a larger strategy, coordinated. The scale is expanding fast. The silence finally breaks. The world begins to see what has been happening all along. News spreads. Fear begins to rise. Uncertainty spreads across nations. Understanding comes slowly. The stakes are enormous. Pressure impacts decision-making. Command structures are pushed to their limits. Too many variables. Orders become unclear. Responses delayed. Small miscalculations lead to massive consequences. The moment arrives, conflict almost visible. Forces stand within range, weapons ready. Seconds hang, but no one fires. Not yet. Once it begins, it cannot be contained. Everyone understands. The Arctic has reached its breaking point. Every force is in position. Every system is active. The point of no return has already been crossed. What comes next will define the future. The first collapse doesn't come with an explosion. It comes with silence. Systems that once controlled everything suddenly stop responding. Data disappears, connections fail, and within seconds, control begins to slip. Because in a system built on precision, failure spreads faster than recovery. What starts in one location quickly spreads to others. A chain reaction of failures begins, each system connected to another, each failure triggering the next, because the network was never designed to fail this way, and now it cannot be stopped. The blackout grows, entire regions go dark, no tracking, no communication, no visibility. Forces operate without coordination, decisions made without information, because the system that connected everything is no longer reliable, and without it, control becomes impossible. The impact spreads beyond the Arctic. Global supply chains begin to break. Resources fail to arrive. Delays turn into shortages, and shortages turn into panic, because the world depends on stability, and that stability is now gone. Then comes the realization. This was not accidental. Every failure was planned. Every system deliberately targeted. A coordinated attack across multiple layers designed not to destroy, but to destabilize, because chaos creates opportunity. Without communication, forces begin to lose alignment. Movements become uncertain. Coordination breaks down, because every unit now operates alone, disconnected from command. And in this environment, isolation becomes vulnerability. Inside command centers, pressure reaches its peak. Decisions must be made quickly, but information is incomplete. Leaders are forced to act without clarity, because waiting is no longer an option, and acting blindly is dangerous. As if the situation wasn't already unstable, nature intervenes. A storm of massive scale, reducing visibility to nothing, disrupting every operation further. Because in the Arctic, the environment is unpredictable, and now it becomes part of the chaos. Resource extraction halts abruptly. Sites go offline one after another. Production stops completely, because without coordination, operations cannot continue. And every second lost increases global impact, because these resources are critical to everything. Then comes the first visible consequence, an accident caused by confusion. Two vessels collide in conditions that cannot be controlled. Damage spreads quickly, and for the first time, the cost becomes visible, because this is what happens when systems fail. The Arctic transforms into unpredictability. No clear control, no clear structure. Forces cross paths without planning. Movements become reactive, not strategic, because the system that guided everything no longer exists, and without it, anything can happen. The world is now fully aware. The Arctic crisis is no longer hidden. News spreads instantly across every nation, but awareness brings fear, because the situation is already out of control, and no one knows what comes next. The Arctic collapse sends a shockwave across global energy systems. Power grids begin to fluctuate, unpredictably. Supply chains for energy are disrupted at their core. Cities that once operated without interruption now face instability, because energy is the backbone of modern civilization. The financial system reacts instantly. Markets begin to fall, faster than anyone predicted. Investments tied to energy and resources collapse. Confidence disappears in minutes, because the Arctic was never just about geography. It was about stability. And now that stability is gone, the global economy begins to fracture. Communication systems begin to fail. Beyond the Arctic, signals drop across regions. Connections weaken globally, because the network that once supported everything is interconnected. And when one part collapses, others follow. The world begins to lose its ability to communicate clearly. A critical truth becomes impossible to ignore. The world depended on the Arctic more than it realized. Shipping routes, energy supply, raw materials, all connected to this frozen region. And now that connection is broken. This is not just a regional crisis. It is a global dependency being exposed in real time. The public begins to react. Panic spreads faster than information. People rush to secure resources, food, fuel, essentials, because uncertainty creates fear, and fear drives action. But the system is not prepared for this level of demand. Governments attempt to respond, but control begins to slip. Too many problems, not enough solutions. Emergency measures are introduced, but they arrive too late, because the crisis has already spread, and containment is no longer possible. The Arctic conflict finally turns physical. What was once silent now becomes visible. Forces begin to engage directly, not full-scale war, but no longer hidden. This is escalation, moving into a new phase, and there is no way to reverse it. If resources cannot be controlled, they will be denied. Key sites are destroyed deliberately, not to gain advantage, but to prevent others from gaining it. This is a new level of strategy, destruction over control, because in this war, denial is power. Movement across the world begins to slow. Transport systems are disrupted globally, air, sea, and land. Everything depends on coordination, and coordination is failing because the Arctic was a critical link in global movement, and now that link is broken. The systems that once controlled complexity can no longer handle it. Too much data, too many failures, too many variables at once. They begin to shut down, one after another, because they were designed for stability, not for collapse. And now, they are failing completely. For the first time, the realization becomes personal. This is not distant anymore. It is happening everywhere. Lives are changing rapidly, and control feels out of reach, because what began in the Arctic has reached the entire world. The collapse is no longer contained. It spreads across continents, systems failing in sequence, infrastructure breaking under pressure, because everything is connected. And when one part collapses, others follow. This is not a crisis anymore. This is global system failure. The world stands on the edge, between control and complete collapse. The Arctic conflict continues, but its impact is everywhere. Every system tested, every structure strained. Because this is not just a regional war, it is a global turning point. And what happens next will define everything. The Arctic goes completely dark, not partially, not temporarily, but entirely. No signals, no tracking, no visibility. Every system that once monitored this region has disappeared because control has finally broken, and what remains is uncertainty. Forces become completely isolated, cut off from command, cut off from each other. Decisions must now be made independently, without coordination, without confirmation, because the system that once connected everything no longer exists, and isolation creates risk. Without control, order begins to break. Movements lose structure, intentions become unclear. Every encounter carries uncertainty because no one knows who is acting and why. And in this environment, mistakes become inevitable. Beyond the Arctic, civilian systems begin to fail completely. Power outages spread across cities. Communication disappears. Basic services stop functioning because the infrastructure relies on stability, and stability is gone. Then, the first uncontrolled engagement, not planned, not ordered, but triggered by confusion, a reaction to uncertainty. And once it begins, it cannot be reversed, because without control, even small actions can escalate into something much larger. Fear reaches its highest point, information becomes scarce, and rumors spread faster than truth. People begin to question everything, because no one understands what is happening anymore. And when understanding disappears, fear takes its place. Trust begins to collapse between governments, between systems, between people. Information is no longer reliable. Statements are questioned because reality has become unstable. And without trust, coordination becomes impossible. There comes a moment when control is no longer possible. Systems shut down, not by failure, but by necessity, because they can no longer function. This is the point where control is officially lost. And from here, only consequences remain. The realization settles in slowly. This is not temporary. This is not a moment. This is a shift, a permanent change in how the world operates. Because what was once stable has been broken, and rebuilding will not be simple. The world has crossed into something new, not fully collapsed, but no longer stable. The Arctic conflict has reshaped everything. Power, control, systems, all redefined. And now, a new phase begins, not of collapse, but of transformation. After the collapse comes silence, not peace, but a pause. The chaos has settled, but the consequences remain, because what was lost cannot be restored instantly, and what has changed will never return to its original state. From the collapse, new structures begin to form. Forces regroup, systems slowly reactivate, not as they were before, but in a new form. Because survival requires adaptation, and adaptation creates new power structures. Then comes the final revelation. Control was never completely lost, it was transferred. Hidden systems remained untouched, protected, isolated, prepared. While the visible world collapsed, another layer continued to operate. Because this was never chaos, it was transition. The real power was never visible, it operated behind the system, beyond governments, beyond public view. And now, it begins to emerge, not to reveal itself, but to take control openly, because the world is ready to be reorganized. The Arctic is no longer contested, it is controlled. Every key zone secured, every route monitored, every resource accounted for. This is no longer a battlefield, it is an asset under complete authority. Extraction begins again, but differently, more controlled, more efficient, more exclusive. Only selected entities have access, because resources are no longer shared. They are allocated, and allocation defines power. New trade routes are established, faster, shorter, fully controlled. The Arctic becomes the center of global movement. Old routes lose importance. New ones define the economy, because whoever controls movement controls the world's flow. The world begins to realign, old alliances shift, new partnerships emerge, not based on history, but on access. Access to resources, access to routes, access to power. The economy recovers, but not freely. It is guided, controlled, managed. Growth returns, but within limits, because stability now depends on control, and control is concentrated. Life continues, but differently. Changes are subtle, yet permanent. People adapt because they must, but the system they live in is no longer the same, and it never will be again. Surveillance reaches its peak. Nothing moves without being tracked. Every action recorded, every system monitored. Because control requires visibility, and visibility is now absolute. The truth becomes clear. This was never just a resource war, it was a restructuring of power, a shift from chaos to controlled order. And those who controlled the transition now control everything. A new balance has been created, not equal, but stable. Power concentrated in fewer hands, decisions made faster, with greater impact. Because the system has evolved, and evolution always comes with a cost. The Arctic was never just ice, it was the key to the future. And the race to control it has reshaped the world. Because in the end, those who control resources control everything. And that control has now been decided. Resources are no longer freely accessed. They are assigned, controlled, distributed. Every barrel, every mineral, tracked and approved. A centralized system now decides who gets what and when, because scarcity has changed the rules. And control over distribution is now the ultimate form of power. The Arctic is no longer remote. It has become the center of the world. Every major system now connects back to it. Energy, materials, transport. All routes lead here, because what was once hidden beneath ice is now driving global reality, and everything depends on it. The military never leaves. It becomes permanent. Bases are no longer temporary installations. They are long-term structures of control, always active, always prepared. Because protection of resources is now a constant requirement, and presence ensures dominance. Monitoring extends beyond the Arctic. It becomes global. Every region connected into one system, every movement visible, because control is no longer local. It is planetary. And this network ensures nothing escapes observation. Power begins to shift again, not to governments, but to those who control the resources directly. Corporations evolve into governing entities, decisions made based on efficiency, not politics. Because in this new world, control follows ownership, and ownership belongs to a select few. But the memory of collapse remains, the destruction, the panic, the loss. It is not forgotten, because it shaped what came after. A reminder of what happens when control is lost, and why control must now be maintained at all costs. Humanity adapts, as it always does. New systems become normal, restrictions become routine, because survival requires acceptance, and acceptance creates stability, even if that stability comes with limitations. On the surface, everything appears stable. Systems function, life continues. But beneath that stability lies control, carefully maintained, constantly monitored. Because this balance is not natural, it is engineered. Even the strongest systems are not perfect. Small disruptions still occur. Reminders that control is fragile, because complexity always carries risk, and maintaining this system requires constant effort. The final understanding emerges. This was never just a conflict over resources. It was a transformation of how the world operates, from open systems to controlled structures, from independence to dependency, because control over resources means control over everything else. The world has been redefined, not destroyed, but reshaped. Power concentrated, systems controlled, resources secured. Because the final truth is simple. Whoever controls the last resources controls the future, and that future has already begun. Control is no longer being built. It is fully established. Every system connected, every process aligned. Energy flows, shipping moves, resources distribute, all under one coordinated structure. Because the transition is complete. What once required competition now operates under unified control. And that control is absolute. Access is no longer open. The era of free exploration has ended. Every entry point is controlled. Every movement requires approval, because what remains is too valuable to be shared. And in this new system, exclusivity defines power. Control is maintained without noise, no visible force, yet constant enforcement. Automated systems respond faster than humans ever could. Every threat neutralized before it emerges, because silence is the most efficient form of control. And here, it is perfected. Humanity adapts fully. Life continues, but within boundaries. Access is granted, not assumed. Opportunities are structured, not unlimited, because the system now defines limits. And within those limits, people learn to exist, because survival depends on compliance. The chaos begins to fade. Memories of collapse slowly disappear, replaced by stability and routine, because time softens even the most intense events. And as memory fades, control becomes accepted, as if it was always there. Freedom appears unchanged. Life feels normal, choices still exist, but within invisible boundaries, because control does not need to be seen to be effective, and the most powerful systems are the ones people don't question. The final truth emerges quietly. This was not an accident, not a reaction, but a plan, a system designed long before the collapse, prepared, tested, executed, because true power does not react to events, it creates them. Power is no longer divided, it is centralized, a structure built on control, not competition. Decisions flow from the top and shape everything below, because in this world, power is no longer about influence, it is about ownership. From above, everything looks stable, balanced, synchronized, controlled, a world operating without visible conflict. But beneath that balance lies absolute control, because this is not natural order, it is engineered reality, and it is working exactly as designed. The Arctic was never just ice, it was the last frontier, the final resource, the ultimate control point. And now, it belongs to those who understood its value first. Because in the end, whoever controls the last resources doesn't just control the world, they control the future.